name's Jorge. I grew up in the 80s and I used to love getting into trouble. I am a big fan of cats. I love going to church, love God, and I've been a music fan my entire life. Recently, I've discovered I really like extreme metal, and I want to invite you to journey with me on my discovery of extreme metal. What is up, folks? Welcome back to A Christian Collects Death Metal. Why am I yelling? It's your pal Jorge here, back at you with another video. Thanks for stopping by, and once again, welcome back. My friends, today we will be discussing the new offering from Black Curse, Burning in Celestial Poison. And this is going to be a bit of a deep dive of sorts, and we're going to ask ourselves a few questions, one of them being, is it better than their debut? Obviously, this was a massive success, a massive hit among fans of extreme metal. Did they do justice with this one? We'll answer that question, as well as get into the nitty-gritty. So before we get into the material of the album, we'll actually check out what you get. So you actually get, obviously, the record, but it doesn't just come with any old insert. You actually get a booklet, which is really cool. It's got a ton of artwork, really righteous, really radical artwork in here. I mean, check that out, man. That is just absolutely phenomenal. Of course, you all know that Black Curse is a bit of a supergroup of sorts. It says these curses were unveiled through Eli Windler, Spectral Voice, obviously. He does guitars on this one. Of course, on Spectral Voice, he does drums, vocals. He does vocals and guitars on this one. A bit of a multi-talented individual of sorts. Man, his vocals are just absolutely phenomenal on whatever it is that he does. Jonathan Campos of Primitive Man fame, right? He is on guitars here as well. I think on Primitive Man he does bass. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think this is, I'm going to butcher this all the way around, and I apologize in advance. Ephemeral Domagnostica? So sorry if I said that wrong. Helling from Ulthar, right? One of my, absolute favorite bands. I love Cosmovore, Providence, two of my favorite records by them. Great performer. We also have on drums Antonym, I believe. So I'm not sure if he's doing some session drums. I think he did drums also on Endless Wound. And it's kind of funny or crazy or neither. But so you have 4 songs essentially. But if you stream the album, you'll see 5 songs. And where that 5th song comes from is the 3rd song broken down into 2. Ruinous Paths being the biggest part of it. And then To Babylon. Altogether, one big song. But yeah, that's where the 5 tracks come from. It's interesting how they've laid this out. So the first song, Spleen Girt with Serpent. This is called The Conjuration. Then you have Trodden Flesh, which is the constraint. Ruinous Pass to Babylon, the Invocation of the Curse. Flowers of Gethsemane, the Greater Curse Manifest. It's interesting that they gave us these little hints, if you could call it that. So doing some research, because you always wonder, and when it comes to Spectral Voice, I'll be looking stuff up because their song titles, am I right? The same with Black Curse. Some of these things stick out to me, just obviously being a person of faith such as Babylon and Gethsemane. So when I'm looking into stuff like Spleen Girt with Serpent, I know that girt means, from what Google tells me, means to encircle. So I don't know if it's something to do with invoking the magic circle or to be encircled. And let me just say that it seems like the cover art represents all the songs right here on the cover. I could be wrong, but you see, the girt with serpent right here. And also this shape right here, which kind of a circle that almost looks like an apple. That's actually, I think, the shape of a spleen. Or it could be this thing right here. Not altogether sure. These different pathways could, be, the ruinous ones to Babylon, Gethsemane, and then you have the other things, too. like torment, death, some of the things that are indicative of words like Gethsemane, torment, agony, what have you. So is the entire album represented in this artwork? I think so. I think so. I may not understand exactly what's going on, but I think that's what they were going for here. And like I said, I could be wrong. And so spleen, I guess, according to Confucianism or Confucian philosophy, the spleen is basically the source of all life. It feeds the mind, body, and soul. So, there's some type of messaging there that we'll get into, I think, a bit here toward the end. The song starts out with an absolute bang and goes into some squally guitars at one point that almost brought a tear to my eye. Guitars that you just really don't hear every day. Now, I would describe this type of genre in my own simple-minded way as bestial war doom. But if you look it up on Metal Archives, it says that this falls under deathened black metal. And maybe that makes more sense. There's not a lot of doom to be had as far as, slow, drawn out, droney sort of parts. However, there are some moments where things kind of slow down just ever so slightly for a bit, only to pick up the pace. And this first song is just basically not that. This is like an onslaught from beginning to finish. The conjuration, this is the initial conjuring, and I think it has to do with the acknowledgement for self-growth or inner awareness. And the second track, Trodden Flesh, The Constraint, was the single that they initially released. And wow, dude, that drummer, man, kudos. I mean, just an onslaught, just an absolute auditory assault. You know what this kind of reminds me of is the Lunar Terrial from Swallowed. Just even some of the vocal delivery from Mr. Wendler, it kind of brings that sort of thing, material to mind. So yeah, the constraint, obviously flesh, that is the physical thing that is stopping progress for the inward self. I think that's what they're saying here. I think there's an acknowledgement for self-discovery, spiritualism, what have you, whatever works for you. And there's the thing that gets in the way, our own physical being, the constraint. Ruinous Pass to Babylon, what a great song. I think this might be my favorite of the lot. I mean, it starts out fierce, as you'd expect, and I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about the production. I've seen one person comment that they're not a big fan of this style of production, and it's a bit on the rawer side, I guess you could call it. I think it works. I see what the guy is saying, because it does sound a bit different than their debut, Endless Wound. It doesn't sound as clean, but I think that it works. That's two things that it's such a delicate balance, the material of the album and the production, and those two really have to match. The more raw, then the material has to kind of meet that, and black metal is one of the only genres that can really do justice for that. These guys, this producer, Arthur Riffs, I like it, and I found out that as far as the low end, the gentleman was talking about, he couldn't really decipher, kind of pick out some of the bottom end. It's fine. I can hear the bass just fine, and I found that the louder that you turn it up, for me personally, the better it is, the more things are decipherable, the instrumentation, what have you. But this third song, two, sorta, right? Ruinous Pass to Babylon. Kind of two songs married together as one. The Invocation of the Curse. So this is them invoking this curse, whatever it is they're doing to try to, bring about improvement or what have you. This is, you know, Babylon is basically symbolic for to me as like a place of arcane knowledge, hidden knowledge, a place long forgotten, right? So much so that the paths to it lay in ruins, right? And it's not an easy task to get there, and yet that's what you have to take in order to make this happen for yourself, right? This deeper awareness of spirituality within you. I think that's what this is saying. Music is subjective. I think that they're hitting on these things that I'm discussing here. But yeah, what an onslaught of a song. You would think that the last part to Babylon would be, kind of simmer down a little bit, and I guess to a degree it kind of does. But dude, these guitars, man, between the guitars, Eli's vocals, just the wild drums, and the bass, dude, it is just an absolute madness throughout. Flowers of Gethsemane, the ending track, and it's quite an album closer, to say the least. They call it the Greater Curse Manifest. This could be the most, probably in my opinion at least, haunting track of them all, even though it's still that, assault, style of approach from Black Curse. There's something different about this song, a bit more ominous, right? And that, toward the end of the song, actually the last few seconds, you have some drone stuff that they end on. Gethsemane is basically a place that represents agony, right? That's where Christ prayed one of his last prayers, stressed out, sweating literal drops of blood, which is an actual medical condition. But Gethsemane represents, though it is a garden, and beautiful as it is, it represents a place of agony. And so for something positive to bloom from that, that's it. That's what we were working for, right? All this pain, this hell, this sorrow, strife, what have you, for something to good, arose from the concrete, So, yeah, the Greater Curse finally made manifest. It's a great song. It's probably, I couldn't imagine any other closer for this album. And let me just circle back around to the opening track, right? So, Spleen Girt with Serpent. Eli does something with his vocals that are very similar to what he did on the ending of Carnal Riff in their debut album. So their opening song, right, Carnal Rift, he does this thing, and it's the last few seconds, right? It's unique among the entire song on that first album, that opening track. It's like the last 15 seconds, he delivers some strange, unique vocal delivery. Some of you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go back and listen to that song, and the last 20 seconds, listen to that. Listen to what he's doing there, because he kind of repeats it in a way on Spleen Girt with Serpent. When I originally heard that little tiny section, tiny as it was, on Carnal Riff, I thought, wow, that is so interesting. I wish that they would do more with that type of vocal delivery, and they did just that very thing. I don't know if it's Spleen Girt with Serpent. I don't know if it's only like twice in the song, I believe, kind of like a chorus, but not really, right? I don't know how to explain it. But you'll notice especially if you go back and listen to that Carnal Riff, the ending, and then listen to this, you'll pick up, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you already know, I'm sure, right? And I'm not going to try to imitate it. I don't want to embarrass myself, and I couldn't do justice anyway. But the ending of that song, he seems to do that. The lyrics obviously different, but that delivery style, he does it a couple times in that first song. And wow, that was really a cool thing to see. I don't know if it's a nod to that opening track on Endless Wound or not. But man, I wanted to hear more of that, and yeah, I got that with this new album. So how does it hold up? Is it actually better than Endless Wound? In my opinion, yes. And because of the subject matter, you almost have to listen to both albums as one. It just seems like Burning in Celestial Poison seems like very much a continuation of Endless Wound. And I think that the bandmates would acknowledge that. At least in my estimation, right? I haven't done a deep dive on Endless Wound, but yeah, I think the two are basically married. They're like two in the same. You know, you listen to one and you have to immediately listen to the other. At least for me. From now on, that's what I'm going to start doing. Phenomenal album. This is as close to a perfect album of the year as I could think. It's definitely one of the albums of the year for sure, and I think it will go down as one of the great timeless albums in extreme metal. Period. Uh, you know, according to me, right? Who am I? Hey, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening to me talk about this phenomenal band, Black Curse. If you haven't checked it out, I'm sure you have already if you're listening to this. Man, wow. Can't wait to see what these guys do next. I'm going to be listening to this for quite a while. Really do enjoy it. Jorge, a Christian who collects death metal. Be blessed.